Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Love Her podcast.
Yes, hello everybody. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Yet again, another week, episode 6. That is so exciting.
I can't believe
This,
it's been 6 weeks.
I know, 6 weeks. That's almost 2 months. We're going into our now second month of the podcast.
I know,
How
and it's the
exciting.
last episode before retrograde starts.
It is, I'm already feeling retrograde. I am already feeling it, but it is perfectly fine. We will maneuver through.
Yes, and I know last time, the last two episodes, Naya and I talked about our stories, and in that, there's just like so much. We're saying between the two of us, we've been through some stuff. And I think along the way, we've learned a lot about relationships, whether it be friendships, romantic partnerships, relationships with our family. I just feel like we've learned so much. And so we kind of wanted to just answer some questions that you guys have and really talk about relationships.
Yeah, we're excited to now take it further. We both kind of had that parallel of us having friendships that meant the world to us, and those friends became family very easily at very tough times in our lives. So, we do really find it important, relationships in general, because relationships shape who you are, and the people you're surrounded by shape who you are. So, we're excited to share more about ours and our experiences with family members, friends, acquaintances, and all different kind of relationships. So welcome back to episode 6.
Yeah. And so I guess I'll start off with a little question. We didn't plan this beforehand, like the question I'm about to ask. So I thought it could be
Wait,
kind of fun.
can I just say that we never have notes?
We never, one thing about us, we are not going to have notes.
I actually, really quick, a friend of mine asked, like, how do you guys plan out your podcast? And I was like, we don't. We don't have notes. So again, this week we don't have notes. We just flow and we just yap and it works. So go ahead, shoot it at me, Nez.
Okay. So obviously, we've had friendships in our lives from the time we were super young, like 5 years old, to now being 25 years old. What is one thing that you feel like you've learned about friendship throughout the years? If you had to say one lesson that you were like, okay, I really evolved in this, what would it be?
Not everybody's your friend.
Hmm.
For me personally, I feel like because I had such good friendships in high school and growing up, and I was so used to being surrounded by people that I could genuinely consider a friend. I feel like once I moved to a new city and a bigger city, you get a different dynamic of people than you do in like the suburbs or a beach town. So I had to learn really quickly and the hard way that not everybody is going to be the friend that you expect them to be. And that's okay. Like, not everybody is going to be that best friend, but you have different types of friends, different types of people in your lives that you can have for different things. You can have the party person, you can have the random catch up, you can have the very good friend,
Yeah.
the work people, things like that. So, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with that point. I think it's so important to have different friends for different things. Like you said, have one friend that you go to parties with, another that you go to the gym with. Just having those groups and recognizing that you can't have everything in everyone.
Yeah.
I feel like something I've learned is that not even about friendship, but just relationships in general, is there are very rarely times where you can tell someone what they should and shouldn't do.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people run into this dilemma when they see their friend dating someone that they don't like, for example. I think we've all had that situation in high school or college where your friend was dating a guy that was treating her like shit. And as the friend, you want to help her get out of that relationship so badly. But something I've learned is that you have to let people make their own decisions. You have to.
Yeah.
Even your closest friends, you have to.
Yeah, because it's a part of their experience and a part of their journey. And if you ever get to a point where you feel like that doesn't align with you, you can't stress yourself out over it. You have to sometimes distance yourself. That's another thing I've learned too in my adult life, that I once had a friend where it seemed very toxic and it didn't matter what I said or did or the advice or how much love I gave. She was going to make her decision at the end of the day. And at that point, you decide on what you're going to do as her friend, you know, and sometimes even you distancing yourself opens their eyes because other people will soon fall suit when they see that this isn't really making her a better person, you know, or making them a better person. So I agree with that.
Yeah, and what do you think are some, for you personally, like signs that you know you're ready to distance yourself from someone?
Recently, I will say my friend group has shrunk a lot. Well, people that I consider my really good friends, because I feel like I used to consider so many people my good friend, best friend, whatever. So I feel like when I got to this point of realizing not everybody is my friend and that is okay, was when I wasn't feeling respected in the same light that I was respecting. And
Mhm.
there was nothing wrong with whatever anybody was doing. I just had different expectations. And when I realized other people that I was considering friends didn't have those same expectations or didn't have the same respect, that is when I decided to distance myself. Because some people are okay with certain types of friendships and how certain people decide to move as a friend, but you kind of have to set what is okay with you. And I think that's with any relationship, you know?
Yeah, and I think also sometimes when we're distancing ourselves from people, it doesn't have to be like something catastrophic happened.
Yeah.
I think it's just a lot about life phases and how you're moving. And
Yeah.
something that I've noticed recently, especially kind of just going through the healing journey and trying to evolve as a person, is it's hard to be friends with people that aren't on the same pace. And that
Yeah.
doesn't make them bad or it doesn't make me bad. It just means that, like, we're not aligned in that life phase way. We're not aligned in where we're going, and so that is a situation where you might have to distance yourself from someone, even if there wasn't something incredibly bad that happened.
Yeah, or even people that are super negative. Like, if you are hanging around people and you feel like their energy is draining you, like if you notice after you hang out with somebody, you're always really tired, you're always really down and out, like your mood shifts, that could also be a sign that maybe that's just not your person for this time in your life to be around consistently. That could be somebody that you do go to the gym with and that be what it is, but not somebody that you would welcome into your home as somebody that's a really good friend that you confide in and you're speaking to on a daily because they're draining you.
Yeah, that's the biggest sign. If you hang out with someone and you feel more drained, and that's coming from me who's an introvert. Like, people drain me a lot of the time, but if I feel exhausted after, then I'm like, okay, maybe I need to evaluate how much time I'm spending with this person.
Yeah, and I'm an extrovert, so I get my energy from people. So, because I typically get my energy from people, I really started honing in on, oh, that feels weird. Like I don't feel as alive with them as I do other people. So that's a sign that I need to like maybe we don't hang out every other week. Maybe we don't always that is not the first person I go to when I had a rough day and you know things like that. So I definitely think that being in our 20s, we see that because our life shifts so much. And not only is your energy important to protect, but your future too, and the people that you are, like you said, aligning with. Because for me, my very close friends, like we said, become family. That family becomes aunts and uncles to my
Mhm.
children. And then my children are surrounded by those people and the ideals that they're spewing out and the things that they're doing and how they're moving trickles down to their children. And those children become family too. So for me, it's just a full circle effect of it's more than just who you are right now, but it's you're building your tribe of people if you want to consider them on the level that we do, you know, friends or family.
Yeah, I agree with the future point, and I think that obviously that goes with partners too. I saw a
Mhm.
TikTok the other day that said, think about your partner and picture 20 years from now, your kid, your daughter, your son, their car breaks down and they have to call your spouse and say, "Hey, my car just broke down. Can you come pick me up?" Would your partner be that reliable person for them that would show up, no questions asked? How would your partner handle those situations with your children? And I think that that is key. You're not just picking a partner, you're picking a parent too.
Yeah, and I actually it's funny that you say that. I saw something today that I sent to my friends. It says, "Hard truth. Your marriage is your child's blueprint for love, conflict, and respect. It's up to you to raise the standard." And I was
Mm.
like, so true. Like, who else is setting that blueprint for your future littles, for the people that will be looking up to you? So yeah, with partners, with friendships, like now more than ever, it means so much more to me to ensure that I'm being surrounded by people that I would feel comfortable having my children around.
Yeah, listen, they cannot be if my friends are teaching my kids some bad shit, no.
No, you're out. Seriously. And I
You're
feel
out.
like the closer we get to our 30s, the more realistic parenthood feels, and we're shaping ourselves right now and shaping all aspects of our lives right now to be the best parents and to go into our 30s and go into this future roles together, not just with our partners, but with the people that we call friends. So it's so important that for me, it's so important that I think of that first.
Yeah, and I think also that goes into making new friends too, and
Yeah.
kind of going from acquaintances to friends, because we've talked about this a little bit before, but it's obviously more challenging to make new friendships once you've graduated college and you're living with your partner. You're no longer surrounded by so many people that are so young, and it becomes the type of thing where you have to make the effort to make these friendships. And when
Yeah.
I making friends. Like I started making friends in the yoga classes I go to. And when we're crossing the line from acquaintanceship to friendship and then to best friendship, there are certain things that I am looking for in terms of like, okay, do we align energetically? Do we
Yeah.
align in terms of life phases and the habits that we want to have? For example, if I'm trying to drink and party less, maybe I don't want to be best friends with someone that drinks and parties all the time. And that doesn't mean there's anything wrong. It's just when you're making these friends, again, going from acquaintances to friends, you really want to understand first what is it that I want to be like in my life, so you can choose those people around you that embody that.
Yeah, because you become the people that you surround yourself with so easily. Those people, you guys morph into having a lot of the same characteristics. And so it should be somebody that you genuinely admire too, and somebody that you really want to become.
Yeah.
I do have a question for you, Ness. So in the
Yes.
past, and even if it's shifted now, say that you do have somebody that you've been really close with, or you do have like a family member that you've kind of distanced yourself. How do you go about doing that? How do you go about kind of having that conversation of like, this is just not working for me right now? Or maybe what is some advice that you have for our audience?
I mean, I think it's so situational, like
Yeah.
a family member versus a friend that you've been with friends with for a long time versus someone that you've only known for a little bit of time, and also depends like how frequently were you spending time with this person? How frequently were you communicating with them? I think the most important thing that you can do is make it about you, and not in the way that you might be thinking, but when you're communicating your feelings about something that obviously is a difficult topic, like you're about to communicate that you maybe don't want to spend as much time with them, or maybe that you're not aligning, I would say make it about you. So say, hey, friend, I've been doing a lot of soul searching and I'm finding it really important that I spend the next 6 months really just honing in on my self development. So unfortunately, I can't hang out right now because I'll be doing XYZ. Obviously, you don't want to lie, but what I'm saying is the reason you're ending a friendship or relationship is because of your own growth. So make it about that. You know,
Hmm.
take ownership of the fact that you are growing, and the other person is going to see that as well. So that's kind of how I've been approaching that in the past few years, and how I feel like I would recommend that other people do that too. Obviously, every situation is different, but owning your own self growth, there's never going to be anything wrong with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to be somebody that would ghost. I hate to admit it. When it came to relationships, friendships, I just wasn't really feeling, I would just stop. I was never really message or conversation of like, this isn't working for me anymore. It was just like, I get a couple text messages, I don't respond. I get a phone call, I don't respond until they finally get the hint. But as I've been healing and moving through this journey, I understand the importance of having that conversation, because you might also be teaching them something about themselves, or showing them that like growth can happen if you're moving out of a space that you guys were once in together. So I've had those conversations. And one time there was a situation where somebody did not react very well to it. And I still, at that point, after I was, very respectful, and was like, this is just not working for me. I'm on a journey, and I don't know that our friendship really aligns with where I want to be for myself. They reacted very heavily and very intense, and I just didn't feed into the energy. I just was like, I'm just going to let them be. And then they turned around and they apologized. So I think in that example, it was like a moment of, I still did what I needed to do for myself, and I was still very respectful. And if the person then turns around and is not being reciprocal of that respect, that has nothing to do with you. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
you just gotta let them be.
I actually think that the same thing goes with apologies. It's very important to apologize to people, but what we don't get right about apologies sometimes is we're waiting on a specific answer from the person. We
Hmm.
are giving the apology in expectation that we're going to get the it's okay in return. And the truth is, sometimes we won't.
Yeah.
Sometimes we will give that apology and we will have people in our lives, friends, family members, it doesn't matter, that will say, what are you talking about? And that will tell us off in return.
Hmm.
And in the apology instance, in the instance where you're setting a boundary, remember that this is for your greater good. And you're doing that to get the negative energy off of your chest, to draw the line in the sand and make peace. And that's it. You can't expect a specific response. It just is what it is.
Yeah, and you'll kind of feel the weight lifted off your shoulder once you do what's meant for you, what feels right. Like, I think that when you're navigating relationships, we all deep down inside know what's right for ourselves. Like, when you really take the time to think to yourself, like, I need to do what's right for me, and I need to choose the people that align with where I want to be, it feels so relieving. And in the moment, because there's just so much going back and forth, if the person doesn't react in the way that you expect, it may not feel that way, but you will see later on, wow, like months later, like, I cannot even believe I fed into that, or we went through that, or, that was a whole thing. And then even then, there's always a chance that that person might come back around and give you the response that you always wanted. And not that that's something that you should look for, because you do have to move past that. But a lot of times you will see that once you're thriving and doing better and you've moved on and you've stuck true to yourself, people will be like, oh, wow.
I feel like people experience that with romantic relationships a lot, where like
Oh,
they'll be super into someone and then it ends. And then the second that they move on, the old flames come back. And they're like, seriously?
they always come back.
They always come back.
They always come back. I used to say that in high school all the time. It was just like my thing. I was like, they always come back. But Lord
I
knows
feel
I've
like
been
I
in.
remember you saying that to me and it stuck with me.
Listen, your older cousin can teach you some things. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, we know I've had my fair share of relationships and friendships. And, although we didn't live near each other, I think you kind of saw the evolution of just like even my friendships in my adulthood, my relationships in high school and throughout my life, that I don't even want to sit here and act like this has been an easy road for me at all. Because I think because I've always been an extrovert, a people person, that like that comes with a shadow side and a positive side, as do all traits of yourself. Some might say pros and cons, but I think that it has been so difficult for me if I immediately feel like I connect with somebody, to attach to that one connection that I had with them. Those few
Mhm.
conversations, those few good moments, regardless of how it's making me feel now in my present life and how it shifted. So, being in the space that I'm in, I take friendships, breakups, relationships with family so hard. Like, it's like I feel the weight of it when I do have to kind of have that tough conversation of letting it go, of letting it go. But
Mhm.
being in the space that I'm in now and knowing that I am that person, I can now say that looking back on all those things and all those moments that I did have to have those conversations and it felt so hard, I thank God for it. You know? I'm like, wow, I can't even believe where I would be if I was still in that, if I was still in that
Yeah.
space.
Yeah. And I kind of want to go back to what you said about how, you're super extroverted and when you first meet someone and you have an amazing moment and that kind of sticks with you. I used to have this theory that everyone was either one of two types of people. The first is that you meet someone and you automatically have a trust in them and that trust exists until it's broken. And then the other kind of person, which is more like me, and maybe it's an introvert extrovert thing, is that you don't really trust people until time goes on and then it's built over time. And I think that that's really interesting because, again, neither is good nor bad. It's just very interesting how different everyone is. And we all operate in relationships based on, what we saw growing up, based on our prior experiences. And so I think it's so important to understand how you personally walk through friendships and relationships.
Yeah, that is so interesting. And we always have these moments in the podcast where we find
We
out
do.
how different we are. Um, but somehow we do get along really well, but our personalities are so different in the sense of you are more guarded and I am so open. Like, I'll walk into a room and talk to the wall and you're like, wait, why is that wall that color? I don't know about that. But combined, our personalities, I do
Stellar.
sometimes. Exactly. Like, I need to be a little bit more closed sometimes, and sometimes you need to be a little bit more open to
Yeah,
people, and so it is pretty cool to recognize that.
it is. And I think also this is why it's important to be friends with people from different backgrounds, different personalities, because if you kind of stick to the same things your whole life, it doesn't give you the opportunity to learn and to really observe, okay, this is how Naya does this. And I like how she does that. So maybe I should kind of do some of that. And, that's how we grow is just observing the other people.
No, literally. One time, so this is a funny side story. I told you earlier today, like, I've been trying to go to bed early and wake up early and whatever. And one day I was home and I like prepped chicken the next morning, and Mackenzie goes, "You sound like Janessa." And I was like, you know what? That is something I've picked up because I do need more of a routine, and I could use more of a routine in my day to day because you get so much more done when your brain's not everywhere, and my brain is everywhere all the time. So I'm like, if I'm like more like Janessa because I'm prepping lunch so I make sure I eat every day, then call me Janessa, okay?
Girls gotta eat.
Girls gotta eat. No, seriously. So, I mean, going back to what you say, like, you can really learn so much from those people that you're surrounded by. And I think that it really benefits us and this relationship as family, as friends, as cousins to continue learning from each other. And we are the perfect example. I feel like we're the perfect example of really growing with somebody that you find is on the same path as you, that has the same a similar goal in life, and you can really grow and learn from.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think the older you get, like we said, the more important it becomes. Do we want to do questions now?
Oh yeah, sorry, what time is it? Everybody, Janessa has to go soon. So this will be a shorter episode, so sorry, but it's still a great episode.
So I'll go ahead and read it. Okay. So, a question that we have from one of our viewers is, I'd love to hear how you determine who is a friend and who is an acquaintance.
So for me, I feel like that's something that I've had to learn recently in my time here in Atlanta and kind of making shifts in my life that, like I said in the beginning, not everybody's your friend, but really determining what you value in friendship. And if that person is not giving you that, there's nothing wrong with that. But maybe that's not somebody that you consider a friend. Maybe that is an acquaintance. You still have respect for them. You still don't mind being around them. You don't mind partying with them. You don't mind being coworkers with them, whatever. But it's not somebody you're going to tell your deepest, darkest secrets to. And I think it's funny because one of my friends actually, I was on the phone with her and she was talking about Galentine's. And I was like, oh, you should get this person flowers because she said she's going to meet somebody for Galentine's. And she was like, I don't know. I was like, oh, why? She's like, because I give a lot and they really haven't given it to me in return. And I'm like, oh, she's like, yeah, but I have no issue with that. I just understand we're different friends. And I have to set a boundary so I don't feel like I'm giving too much of myself. And she was like,
Mm.
more so acquaintances versus friends, best friends, but I'm okay with that. And I was like, more power to you, girl. Don't get the girl flowers, but that's okay. But that
Yeah,
was just like
I like
her
that.
way of determining. Yeah, it was her way of determining a friend versus an acquaintance. She kind of did a little bit more just to see where it would go, caught the energy immediately and was like, "Okay, cool. I'm not offended. This is just what it'll be for me."
Yeah, I like that a lot of, feeling out the temperature of what am I giving versus what is someone else giving. I feel like we don't do that often enough. It's kind of just like sometimes in friendship we assume, but that is so important. So I love that. For me personally, I think for friends versus acquaintance, what comes to mind is just being comfortable. Especially, again, I'm someone that is kind of to myself. I really won't share a lot of personal things unless I really know someone well. And with acquaintances, it's like there's no reason for me to get deep with them unless we're already going there, or there's just not a comfortability of me sharing my true self to them. And I feel like with friendship, that is a shared vulnerability. It is two people coming together and truly knowing each other and having that relationship that they choose. And so when I think about friendships, even if they're not best friends, people that I'm friends with, it's still, I'm comfortable sharing myself with you and I have a level of trust in you that I know you respect me enough to not put any negative energy on the things that I've told you.
Yeah, yeah, and it's good to kind of test that out, just to not share too much. It's important to know what you need in a person, but also not be so offended if somebody is not able to give that to you because of the expectation. We should align our expectations with ourselves and what we want. But at the same time, like you said, if somebody isn't able to give you that, it's okay to drop the expectation on that person. Maybe that is just not somebody you consider your bestie.
Yeah, I agree. I like that.
Okay, so next question that I found very fascinating was, how do you approach conflict in a relationship? Do you prefer open confrontation or do you tend to avoid it? How does your partner or friend usually handle it when you do that?
Are we talking, I guess we'll go based on romantic partnership or
Yeah, I guess
friendship?
both. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
however,
I think in my relationship, I prefer to just talk about it and then move on. I don't like to avoid it in my relationship and I don't like to dwell in it. I think just because we live together, we've been together for 4 years. At this point, it's like if there's an issue, let's just talk about it so that we can come to a conclusion and move on to the next thing. I think in friendship, I tend to be avoidant just because if there's a conflict with the friend, I feel like a lot of times it can be solved through a simple conversation, but sometimes just getting to the conversation can feel daunting to me. So the conversation is still important for me to have, but I definitely am more avoidant in friendships just because I'm not living with them. It's a lot less in my face and immediate.
I think for me, I like to try to read the space. I think we briefly talked about this before, that like I can be very upfront about things I have to say and things that I feel. If you follow me on social media, you see that. But I also have understood that everybody handles confrontation differently, and some people need time to process it. Some people need time to just like think on it and sit with it. Whereas like I'm somebody that's like I'd rather just get this handled right now. So one thing I've learned is getting to learn the person a little more, and that's something I had to do in my relationship. Is we are two complete opposite people when we do conflict. Mackenzie tends to be somebody that's like, oh, I'd rather just move on, and I'm somebody that's more outspoken about it. So it does end up having to be where I'll have to ask, like, let me know when you're ready to talk about this, and then she has to come back around and give me a time frame. Like, I will be able to talk about this maybe in an hour because I need to sit with it. And I've learned that about friends too, is like I can't just go and send somebody a long message about my feelings. I have to be able to be open with them and say like, hey, there's something I really want to talk about. Let me know when you're ready, because I am so forward with my emotions all the time. So I
Mhm.
really just try to read the space. I do really try to be considerate of the other person in all spaces, because that's something that I've struggled with in the past. So I find more success in doing that whenever I have confrontation with people that I care about.
Yeah, and I think kind of going off of that, something that I've learned about myself to monitor is, and honestly everyone could use this, is when you're really triggered by something or upset by a certain conflict, I have to ask myself, how much am I projecting my own issues onto this situation? That's huge. I know that there's been some individuals in my life that I've received some long paragraph texts from, and that's how they kind of move through conflict. And when they tend to be very negative messages or mean or rude, I have to look at them and say, how much of this is me and how much of it is projection. And sometimes it is me, but a lot of time it also is projection. And that's made me look at how I approach conflict and say, okay, let me take my own issues out of this, because that's not his to carry, that's not hers to carry, that's mine to carry. And then let me
Mm-hmm.
get to what I'm actually upset about when it comes to this conflict.
Yeah, exactly. And that goes with learning yourself and knowing what you need from yourself and what you have to work on and the people that you're surrounded by. And I've learned to look within myself and say, okay, it's not what you did. I think that just triggers me because A, B, C, D, you know?
Yeah.
And that's really helped me too, because I'm not like, oh, it was you, but it's like it's really not you, but it's just what you're doing right now, and I don't know that I can handle it at the moment. And the conversation ends up being a lot lighter, because then they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, like I had no idea that would be something that would affect you. It really is all in communication, and being better
Yeah.
communicators.
And again, when you use I statements of like, I take accountability for this, but this situation brought up feelings for me, I think it just makes the communication aspect better because no one's on guard. Like, I'm taking ownership for the stuff that I was triggered by. And then we can all just understand that at the end of the day, we're just humans that have prior experiences and that have faced challenges beforehand. And so there are going to be future situations that remind you of those challenges. And that's natural. And we all do it.
We all do it. We're all learning and we're all growing together. So have grace for the people that are also in your life. I think that's all we have to say. Always have grace for the people that you're surrounded by, the people that you're going through these things with, because we're all human at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think if you have someone in your life that is a difficult relationship, whether it's family, friends, or partner, first of all, recognize, is this healthy for me? If it
Mm-hmm.
is, even if it isn't, you have to kind of come to a place of compassion. And what always helps me is seeing the person as their childhood self. It doesn't matter if they're 70 or 80 years old. Visualize them as a child and remember that that child was probably hurt at some point, and that's why they probably don't always handle things in the best ways, because they were that wounded child at one point. So give them grace.
Yeah.
They're learning in this life too, doesn't matter how old they are, and we all have those inner child within us.
Yeah, for sure. But we're not saying to stay. If it's toxic, don't
No,
don't
don't stay if it's
don't
toxic.
stay.
Just
But
even if you leave, for your own good, try to come to a place of compassion. And it's easier
Yep.
when you see them as the child.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think you have to go, don't you?
Yes, I think I have to go. We are so grateful for another episode. As always, we are so passionate about all these topics and hope that you guys just take even a little bit of knowledge from this episode today.
Yeah, and hug on your loved ones because they really are the people that make you who you are. So give them grace and love them. Love you guys so much. Thank you guys for tuning in. Love Naya.
Love, Janessa.
Bye.
Bye.